Uh, the first thing you need to know, is it very noisy outside? Can you hear me?
Can hear.
Can hear. With the noise, you still can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Right. The first thing you need to know is the symbol delta x. Delta x represents a small change in x, and delta y represents a small change in y. Of course, this is for x and y. You can have delta v, delta r, delta a to represent a small change in area, small change in volume, or a small change in radius. So you know how to use this symbol delta, right? Delta, delta y, delta x. Okay, next. Now, if the value of delta x is positive, it means that x has increased. From the initial value to the final value, x has increased. Now, if delta x is a negative number, it means that x has decreased. It means that at first x has a certain value, and the final value of x is less than the initial value. So we have a negative value for delta x. Okay, so you have to remember all this because you are going to put in the sign yourself, right? Or maybe if you get a positive sign or negative sign, then you have to interpret the meaning of the sign. Okay, right. Next. Okay, next. Now, let's say we have a function y equals to fx. Now, if I substitute x with a certain value, let's say x1, then I will have a corresponding value for y, and I call this corresponding value y1. Okay, so this x1 and y1, they are actually numbers. They're actually numbers. Okay, then when I substitute x with x2, or x2 is another number, right? Then the corresponding value of y that I get is y2. I call it y2. So this set of values, x1 and y1, they are the initial value of x and y. Now, x2 and y2, they are the final value of x and y. Then, what is delta x? Delta x is the final value of x minus the initial value of x. There's the change in the value of x. So this change in value of x is called delta x. Then similarly, I use the final value of y minus the initial value of y. So I have y2 minus y1. And this y2 minus y1 is actually the small change in y. Okay. So the formula for this topic is delta y over delta x is approximately equals to dy dx. So now dy dx is one value, right? But delta y and delta x, they are two different values, two separate values. Okay, not? Okay. So far, any question? Now, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, teacher.
Yes. So if you don't understand, never mind. After I'm going to give you numbers so that you can see clearly what I mean by this. So you must know this lah, delta y, delta x, positive or negative. Then this is how you get delta y, delta x. And the formula for this topic is delta y over delta x equals to dy dx. Now there's one more type of question. Okay, there's one more type of question that involve percentage. Now in your textbook, there is one question like this. Okay, you look at practice self-exercise 2.14, right? And you look at this question number 4. Find the approximate change in x when there is a 4% change in y. So this question involves percentage, and the other questions they are not, right? So I'm going to show you how to solve this problem later on. Okay, so coming back to this question involving percentage, it will be like this. The percentage change in x is delta x over x1 times 100. Oh, you have to divide by x1, not x2, because x1 is the initial value of x. So you use x1, not x2. Okay, the percentage change in y is delta y over y1 times 100. Then you may ask me where the y2 come in, or where the x1 come in. Now the x1 is already inside this delta x there, the x2, sorry. So x2 minus x1 is your delta x. Then you may ask me, hey, this formula only y1. Where is the y2? The y2 is included inside here, the delta y. The delta y is y2 minus y1. Okay, so these are the things that you need to know. Okay, now let me give you some two numerical examples. That is two numerical examples. Now, before that, these are the things that you need to know, right? Delta x is a small change in x. Delta y is a small change in y. Delta x is positive, x is increasing. Delta x is negative, x is decreasing. And the formula for this topic is delta y over delta x is approximately dy over dx. So I'm going to explain to you what is the meaning of all this, right? So we look at this example here, right? Now let's say if I have a function y, and y equals to 2x plus 2. Then I substitute in a particular value for x. I call this value x1. So x1 is equals to 1. So I take this 1, I substitute inside the function or the relation. Okay, I put in 2 times 1 plus 2. This is equals to 4. Then I put in another value of x. This value of x, I call it x2. So x2 is 1.5. I put in 1.5 into this equation. I have 2 times 1.5 plus 2, and this answer is 5. So from this example here, I have two pairs of values. For x1, which is equals to 1, I have the corresponding value y1, which is equals to 4. Then for x2, which is 1.5, I have a corresponding value for y. I call it y2, and this value is 5. So what is your delta x? Delta x is the small change in x. From 1 to 1.5, how much is the change in x? So I use 1.5 minus 1. So x2 minus x1, 1.5 minus 1. And the change in x, the small change in x is 0.5. Then I look at the two values of y. Then I ask, what is the corresponding small change in y? So the change in value of y is from 4 to 5. Okay, so I use 5 minus 4. Okay, so which is equals to 1. Now this 1 is the change in value of y. I call it delta y. So the relationship is when x increases by 0.5, okay, which means that delta x 0.5, y increases by 1, which means that the delta y is equals to 1. So from this example, we know that Delta means the change in the value from one value to another. So we use the final value minus the initial value, we can find the delta. And this delta y and delta x, they come in one pair. If you have so much change in x, then you will have so much change in y. So the corresponding change in y. Okay. Now, actually, you in any question in the exercises, you are not given the y2. You are not given the delta y. So you have to find the y2 and the delta y. Okay. If the question asks you to find delta y, that means they ask you to find the small change. Now, if the question asks you to find what is this y2, that means they ask you to find the approximation. Okay, so approximation and small change, there's a slight difference. Okay, small change, you are interested in how much is the change. You are not interested in the final value. Now for approximation, they want to know what is the final value. What is the final value of y? Okay, so you have to find the y2. Okay, so for this topic, we have two types of questions. One is small change, and the other is the approximation. Now we look at another example here. Okay, regarding the delta y and delta x. Okay, so we have a function y equals to x over 3. Y equals to x over 3. So I substitute in x equals to 1. And this 1, I call it x1. So when I put in x equals to 1, 3 over 1 is 3. And the y1 is 3. Okay, so for x equals to 1, I have a corresponding value of y, which is equals to 3. And this is one pair. So since they are actual numbers, I call it x1 and y1. Okay. Oh, in the second case, I substitute in x equals to 1.5. I put in 1.5 here, right? So 3 divided by 1.5 is equals to 2. Is equals to 2. Right. So this 2 is the final value of y. The 3 is the initial value of y. Now, if I want to ask you, hey, what is the small change in x? What is the delta x? How much the x has changed? So I use the final value of x minus the initial value of x. So delta x is x2 minus x1, which is 1.5 minus 1. That is 0.5. What is 0.5? 0.5 is the change in value of x, which is x2 minus x1. And it is an increase. The value of x increased by 0.5. Then what is delta y? Delta y is the change in value of y. At first, the y is 3. Finally, the y is 2. So how much has the y changed? So I use y2 minus y1, which is 2 minus 3, and I get negative 1. So actually the value of y reduced by 1 from 3 until 2, so it's reduced by 1. That's why we see this negative here. And so you must not terbalik, the order. You must not reverse the order. It should be y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, and not the other way around. It is not x1 minus x2, y1 minus y2, no, right? So from here we know x increases by 0.5, y decreases by 1. Now when you use the word decreases, you don't put the negative sign anymore. Now unless it is in the delta form, then you say delta y equals to -1, because there's no way that you can tell people y is decreasing, provided there is a negative sign there, right? If you say y decreases by -1 is also wrong, right? So if you put the negative there, you don't have to use the word decreases, right? If you put decreases, then you don't have to put the negative sign there. Any question?